Hello, brilliant and embodied souls. My name is Kim. Welcome back to my channel. I have another installment in my Shelves Collide series for you today. I'm so excited to talk about this gem of a book, Nikita Gill's Hekate the Witch, and the decks that are really calling to me as I read this particular book. There's something very seasonal about this particular read, but many of you know, Hekate is my girl. She plays a very large part in my spiritual practice. She and I have a very deep and meaningful relationship. So it has been an utter pleasure to read a coming of age story about her, which is what you will find in Nikita Gill's prose poetry story. So that's right. This is not a typical coming of age novel. This is prose poetry that tells the story of Hekate's upbringing and how she comes into her powers. I'm about a third of the way, I have just a third left of the book. So a lot of what I have to share, I'm still in the grips of the story. But there's a lot of decks that are really calling to me because of my engagement with this particular narrative. The narrative seems to be inspired by Nikita Gill's imagination, which is awesome. I'm not somebody who feels we have to only adhere to historically oriented myths. If we think about what the myths are, they were ancient people telling stories to entertain themselves, entertain each other, convey certain kinds of concepts, relay information, uphold cultural values, all of the functions that stories have for us today were most likely like the functions of the myths in history. So I don't have a problem with Nikita Gill creating this coming of age story about Hekate that is a narrative onto itself. That said, the Hekate portrayed in this particular book is not necessarily the Hekate who I have a relationship with. But I totally make space for that. And I'm nevertheless really, really enjoying, what is a really dynamic and potent coming of age story. Just as a heads up, the book does seem to be geared towards a YA audience. I found it in that section within my local bookstore. So take that into account too. This is a story geared towards younger readers. But it's a fast and dynamic read because you don't have dense text. The narrative just really flies by. And then, just check out the quality. We've got this amazing page decoration. I don't know what to call that. Edging, I guess. And then, just this really awesome dust jacket. It's a really well-produced volume. It has so much going for it. Okay, so let's get into the decks that have called to me because of the narrative. And I will work in some of what's really awesome about this particular book and story as we go along. So the first deck I want to talk about is the Earth and Bone Oracle. This is mass-produced. It is incredibly Hecatean because of all the skulls, because of the flora depicted. There's all kinds of underworld energy within this deck, very dank. There's lots of dogs and snakes. We've got all kinds of of humans in various stages of decay. So a good chunk of Nikita Gill's story takes place in the underworld. In her story, Hekate grows up in the underworld and is essentially an orphan because of the war between the Titans and the Olympians. She's adopted by various spirits and goddesses in the underworld, and they effectively raise her. So this feels very much like the first section of the book and story. There's a loneliness that I get when I work with this deck. There's, again, as I said, like a dankness, a darkness, having to explore shadows of grief and solitude, loss. This deck calls attention to many of those themes. It calls me out sometimes, and in ways that sometimes I really appreciate, and in other ways, like, not so much. Full transparency, I do not always get along with the guidebook. There's something about the author's tone that can at times like really put me off. Nevertheless, it just still feels like very underworld and Hecatean, like Hekate Cathonia. This is very much that face of Hekate, underworld Hekate, spirit whisperer, psychopomp Hekate. That's her epithets found within this particular deck. All right, another oracle that really wanted to come forward is the We Star in the Precious Forest of Twigs oracle. This is a independently produced oracle that I believe comes from the UK. It is black and white for the most parts, with various shades of gray. It seems like charcoal pencils were used to create this imagery. There are a few cards with color, so when you get a card with color, it really pops. The reason why I picked this particular oracle to go along with the book, though, is Hekate spends a lot of times in the fields of Apistol. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's a part of the underworld in the Greek cosmology that people who did not necessarily live a distinguished life go to. So these are people who didn't do anything like massively bad, but they didn't do anything especially good either. So these people are in perpetual waiting. Sometimes they find other loved ones, but sometimes they don't. And the way that these fields are described by Nikita Gill reminded me a lot of this oracle. Very misty, gray, ethereal, but very calm and again, like very Bardot-esque. Not a lot happens there. So the mistiness and the calmness of this particular deck really felt like that area within the underworld. And check this out, right? The ferryman to the underworld right here. and Hekate makes friends with the ferryman in the story. So perfect. It's perfect. On its own terms, this is a really calming and soothing oracle. Even though some of the images can be quite evocative and even at times a touch shocking, the messages are really helpful. So for example, this card, you are being called upon to look within, to explore the realms of self. This is the epic unwritten. It is now time. And that feels actually very fitting with the theme of this particular book. So this deck really, really wanted to come out and play with me because of my engagement with Nikita Gill's work. Let's go Oracle again. I have the Stone and Shadow Oracle, which is very seasonal right now. This made an appearance in my October, like what's on my desk video that I just put out. This is very gothic. As I said in that particular video, very underworld. So again, we get this murky, dark, dank feeling within this particular deck, but it's beautiful too. And there's many aspects of the underworld within Nikita Gill's story that are downright gorgeous. Her writing conveys a lot of beauty, and I just really pick up on the underworld beauty within this particular deck. I do associate this deck a little bit more with Persephone. Persephone has yet to make an appearance in this particular story. I don't know if she will. But it also feels Hecatean. Like again, like her consorting with the spirits, being a psychopomp. This card hunting. She hunts for stories from mortals in the underworld. She learns so much about love and what it means to be a human. Ergo, she becomes a type of soul guide, which feels so beautiful. She's definitely a goddess, at least portrayed in the story, who through her own suffering and strife decides to be a guide to others who are also in experiencing all kinds of perils and difficulties and whatnot. So this deck speaks to the perils of being a human, and the spiritual guidance that we can get from psychopomps like Hekate. This deck is kind of a psychopomp of sorts, just on its own. I love the poetry found within the guidebook, and that's another tie-in. We've got this really evocative, simple. This is not complex poetry, but that dovetails so nicely, reflects so nicely the poetry of Nikita Gill. All right, we are moving into the tarot decks, and I have a new deck, new-ish deck to my collection that's really showing up for me in general right now, but goes really well with the story, and that is the Tarot Genealogico. This is a independently produced, I think, deck. It might be a mass market deck that you can find in Europe. I'm kind of confused as to what's really going on with this particular deck. I suspect that my copy is a counterfeit deck, even though I bought it in a tarot shop, an amazing tarot shop in Milan. See my recent video about some of that. But it's very pagan and elemental. There's something about this deck that harkens back to the old ways, so Hellenic mysticism and the appreciation for the old gods. That energy really comes through in this particular deck. The minors are animal energy and are just represented with the elements. So, water, air, fire, earth. The court cards, here's one, feel very timeless. This feels like a human right out of the book. So that there's something ancient about it. Here's another example, right? Like very, very underworld, I'd say. And then, the minor, or excuse me, the majors feel again like very mythic. Check out our hermit. So there's something really, again, like pagan, ancient, and you feel that ancientness, like that timelessness within Nikita Gill's story. Oh my gosh, I love this temperance. So beautiful. So yeah, you have like a lot of really unique depictions of the majors within this deck that I'm really enjoying. And then all of the elemental and animal energy within the minors, really cool. There's also tons of centaurs within this deck, which my Sagittarian placements, and I've got a lot of them, digs, just totally digs. Yeah, this is becoming a fast favorite deck of mine. And there's a lot of decks that want to pair with it. It's a very versatile deck. So do your research online. It's hard for me to tell how easily one could procure this deck. So heads up about that. All right, the last deck will be no surprise to anybody, and that is Circle of Doors Tarot. Like, this is so Hecatean. It's such a Hecatean deck. I won't go on and on about the deck. Well, we'll see about that. But like the liminal photography, the absence of a lot of Abrahamic symbolism. This deck feels incredibly worldly, also deeply feminine, dark feminine. The court cards are Maiden, Mother, Maga, Crone. So you get this whole life cycle element. This is a great card, Witch, right? This is the Hierophant. I mean, there's such a reclamation of feminine power within this deck, which feels super duper Hecatean to me. But particularly with this story, right? This is a story about a young woman who comes into her own, who realizes her purpose and grapples with lies and deception, along the way, right? Confusion, hurt, loss, grief. It's a robust story, and this deck is a robust deck. Ugh, the depths of this deck. But a big theme within the story, right, is Hekate's like loneliness and grief from essentially being an orphan. She really lacks mothering, and how that impacts her psyche. This deck feels like a mother. There's so much wise maternal energy within this particular deck. So it just complements or comes in to soothe me and some of the feelings I have about reading this particular portrayal of Hekate's story. you know, Hekate needs the energy found within this particular deck in the story. And again, like there's this huge range of experience found within the story, but also found within this deck. There's lots of adventure within the story. There's lots of adventure within this deck. And I mean, look at that. 2 of Keys, aka 2 of Wands, discovery. What can I say? What can I say? The story loves the deck loves the story. The Hekatean exuberance flows. All right, well, that does it for this video. Thank you so much for exploring this beautiful story and the decks that go along with it. Let me know in the comments below what if you've read this book, like what you think. Also let me know some decks that you based off of my description, you could see going really well with this story. I'm always interested in people's Hekatean decks. I always watch your videos when those types of videos come out. Maybe I will make my own in the coming days. We shall see. But as I said, thank you so much for being here. And I am sending you all kinds of love till the next video. Bye for now.